Dear students, welcome back to Intellectual Property Law, HOE 6019. And well, we continue with copyright law. I hope to finish it off today. And I've been uploading some of the previous lectures via YouTube, so video lectures. And I hope you all have been watching them. Well, the viewer numbers are coming down, so I wonder what is that supposed to be. But well, I think in this class we have almost 100 students, so well, I hope you all are following, and I'm sorry about the circumstances here. They're out of our control and we can't really meet in the classroom, but well, this is what we have to try and do, and get 2020 across somehow. All right, so well, copyright, we have been looking at different aspects of copyright. I think you may already have noticed also that homework was put up. Yeah, homework 1 for trademarks. So well, I hope everything is going on fine here. And I've been putting up a lot of besides the lectures, I've also been putting up some material for reading. So I hope it's something that makes sense. All right. So, well, we have looked at copyright, all the different types of copyrightable works, and all the definitions and everything. So now, of course, the question that comes up is, okay, if you have copyright, what can you do? Yeah, and that's the more practical aspect of life. As a lawyer, again, theoretical stuff is good, but in the end, you need to know exactly what are the rights of your client, rights, and what can the other party do to break these rights, for example. And for those who are non-law students, well, also again, you will appreciate that end of the day you want to know, so if you have copyright, how can you monetize it, how can you commercialize it, and so that's what comes up here. So there are basically two types of rights: economic rights and then moral rights. I think I referred to them in a previous lecture in a passing way. So economic rights are, of course, the most important element of copyright law, and these are rights which are, in the literature you would notice that these are referred to as negative rights, in the sense that you don't have to perform these rights as a copyright owner, but rather you can prevent others from misusing your exclusive rights. So as a copyright owner, you or your client have certain exclusive rights, and they can prevent others from exercising these rights without the permission of the copyright owner, in that case you or your client. So of course, there are certain things that the author of a copyright work has the right to control. Now remember, the author is the first owner, and then she or he may sell it on to somebody else, so then that person becomes the second owner or subsequent owner. So we're looking at the rights of the copyright owner over here. So the copyright owner has the right to copy the work, and so you can control how the work is reproduced. It's also called the reproduction right, and so that could be in any form, any format. It could be, for example, in writing, in print media. It could be it could be an audio file, it could be a video file, all sorts of things. Then the right of distribution, the distribution right, which is the issuing of copies of the work to the public. Very important part over here. If you look in the notes, page 10, whatever the rights are regarding distribution, they deal with issuing of copies of work to the public. And of course, this is something that only the copyright owner can exercise, and the copyright owner can prevent others from misusing this right. Now, of course, you may notice here that this right only applies the first time a work enters into commercial circulation, and it would not apply to second-hand or charity shops. Again, very important here. This is what you call the doctrine of exhaustion. Simply put, it covers a lot of IP issues, and it also has strong competition law elements to it. Now, a simple example of this would be, issuing of copies of the work to the public. All right, so let's say I write a book and I publish it, and now I have distributed that book and people have sold it. So I've written a book and you have bought my book. So of course, as a copyright owner, I have the right alone to make copies of my books and to sell them in the market. Now that you have bought my book, and now if you want to sell that book on eBay or Amazon or whatever, now I can't stop you. And that's because I can only exercise my right of issuing of copies as a copyright owner for the first time and not subsequent times. And this is because of the doctrine of exhaustion. All right, and worthwhile to make a note of this, to read it up, especially if you are law students, because it comes very, very handy all the time. So this doctrine of exhaustion is a limiting factor here for a copyright owner. As a copyright owner, I can only sell my work the first time, and that's it. After that, it becomes a second-hand product, and then it can be sold by others without me interfering at all. Although there are some, how would you say, some aspects of this which may not be entirely true, because in some countries, there is a restriction on selling of artistic work, paintings or something, and every subsequent sale you still have to give some money to the artist. But that's a very very unique exception in only a few countries. Then comes the rental and lending right, which would imply over here the right that you have to rent or lend copies of the work. So it's only your right. Nobody else can exercise this right. And maybe while we are here, should also talk about another example, which would be the Mein Kampf example, but I think it comes later on as well, so I'll talk about that later. All right. Then you have the performance right. It's an exclusive right which the copyright owner has, which is to show or play the work in public, and that's your exclusive right. Nobody else can exercise that right. And of course, that's why you can't go to a live performance and record everything, or if you go to a cinema hall, they say clearly you cannot record anything, right? I mean, so you can't put up a camera and record the movie. No, you can't do that. The performance right, showing right, or playing right of the work in public, in public, is an exclusive right of the copyright owner. Okay, and well, even here comes in that Jimi Hendrix performance on stage, for example. So it's a performance right. And of course, what this means is the author can collect money for any of these things which are done by somebody else in the public. Communication of the work to the public by electronic transmission. The communication to the public right, again, this would be covered in the sense that you cannot transmit something to the public without the permission of the copyright owner, which basically covers a very substantial right, because a lot of works get transmitted through electronic means, whether you watch it on television or on your laptop, computer, smartphone, wherever, satellite transmissions, everything gets covered in over here. And then the making of an adaptation of the work, the adaptation right is also covered over here. So let's say you have a book, and then somebody makes a play out of that book, or a novel, a play of the book, or then a movie. So the movie is based on the book or the novel. Then in that case, again, it's an adaptation right. And all of these are covered by copyright. These are the exclusive economic rights. Now again, it's very interesting to see where this leads us. Basically, newer rights keep on coming all the time. So for example, in the past, there were cinema rights, so you could show a movie in cinema. Then came transmission rights, electronic transmission rights, simply because television became more and more popular and people could access all these movies and everything by watching them on television at home. And these were terrestrial rights, because at that time, I'm talking about 40, 50 years ago, you had these masts, these antennas, and then the signals would be sent in a terrestrial way. And then about 30, 35 years ago, satellite rights became very popular, because now you could transmit things through satellite. Nowadays, a lot of things are available online, and with the high internet speeds, it's possible to download or stream movies. So you have all these different online rights now. So all of these are different rights, and the law cannot specifically define each and everything in your economic rights. So if you read these 5 or 6 rights that are outlined, they are very general, but they cover all these sort of elements. And that's very important, because each of these rights can be sold separately. So for example, you can sell the if you own a movie rights. Let's say you own the rights to a James Bond movie, then you can have different rights over here, which you can commercialize. So for example, you could say that, all right, on Friday evening 9 to 12 will be this movie of mine, James Bond movie. It will be telecast on Kanal Cox, or whatever you have in Estonia, Sony Turbo or whatever. And so that's one right. At the same time, you can also say that, well, I will give the online rights, so you can access it on Netflix or something, or HBO, and then Amazon Prime. So that's again a different right. And you may be going on an aeroplane, and then you could choose that James Bond movie from the menu of list of movies, and then you could watch it on the aeroplane. So all of these are different rights, would be covered by at least 1 or 2 of all of these 6 different economic rights that are laid down over here. Then come moral rights, and moral rights are, of course, in a different category. I think I referred to them in the past. For example, this wasn't there, this song, right? Killing Me Softly. I think I played that during one of my video lectures. So moral rights are, now these are non-economic rights, which means you cannot buy or sell them. They are something that are innately present in the author. Now, if you look at some of the theories of IP law, you see different aspects about this. So there are some theories which look at commercialization as the only aspect. So everything in life is just about making money. And then there are some other IP theories which talk maybe about your own personality, or your feelings as an artist. So of course, some of these things come over here. So number 1, the right to be identified as the author or director. So that's a paternity or attribution, very important. So when you're writing your thesis, graduation or master thesis, you will come across this as well. You have to quote the author, and then you have to state it's the author, right? You don't say that, I have written everything. I'm Pawan Dutt. I am the Einstein of the world, and I have thought of every possible idea in life. No, I would have to state that, okay, this is the social systems theory of Parson, published in 1961, this page. Then I would have to say that this theory has some elements which have been adapted into a model by Groen and others in 2002. So then I have to quote this name and the details of the journal or book where it was published. So these are all important things, and that's the right to be identified as an author or director. So nobody can take that away from you. So for example, if somebody pays you money to write their thesis for them, of course, that's a very bad thing to do. But that would be covered over here. You wrote it, it's your work, and your name can't just be deleted for no rhyme or reason. Then the right to object to derogatory treatment of a work, the right of integrity, and that's again something we come across all the time. What is derogatory is, of course, a matter of concern over here, but there can be public interest elements that do come up sometimes. And I'll put up some photos so that you can see that sometimes you have a public interest element which can be very strong. And so one would be of Prince Harry, or the former Prince Harry. I don't know, he's renounced everything here. So there were some photos published, Harry the Nazi. So I'll put that up over here. And there was another photo of this attractive lady kissing some dark guy. And well, these were published. Now, of course, you may ask what's so relevant about that. Lots of people kiss lots of people. Well, it turned out that she was the wife of the president of Estonia. Yeah, so of course this became quite a sensational topic. And well, she was still married, and of course, she was meeting somebody for dinner in some restaurant somewhere on the top floor of a hotel. And so she was kissing him, and then somebody took photos of this event. And now, why am I talking about this over here? Because of course, you can have situations where sometimes public interest can override even copyright concerns. And in this situation, the public interest was that she's the wife of a very high official of the state. And this could be something of concern, because maybe the president could be blackmailed, or maybe it could be bad for national interests. There was also the fact that as the president's wife, she was entitled to some monthly payments, I think 1 or 2 thousand euros, for clothes and general things. So again, issues that come up here. And so again, these are photographs, but these photographs can be published, and as an author, you can't really object sometimes, although you have moral rights, simply because public interest may trump your individual rights. Then the right to object to false attribution. Just as everybody has the right to be named as the author, everybody also has the right not to be misnamed as the author. So it shouldn't be that you write a thesis and you say, oh, Pawan has said this and Pawan has said that, and so you're quoting Pawan, when actually Pawan has not said anything. You're just making it all up on your own. So just to make people think that, oh, you have read Einstein and all these different authors and Pawan's books and articles, which only Pawan reads and nobody else tends to read them for some reason. But anyways, they get published, so I'm happy. Yeah. So the right to object to false attribution is also covered over here. So these are at least 3 of the very basic rights. And again, you should remember the rights that you have are economic rights and then moral rights. And as an IP lawyer, or just generally as a person, a creative person, you have to be aware about these rights that copyright affords to you. So if you have copyright, what can you do with it? Well, you can actually do a lot with it. You can sell that copyright, you can license it, or sometimes you can just waive these rights. You can you don't want to use them. So assignment is of course the straightforward and simple thing. You have rights and then you sell them. Yeah. So you have rights. Let's say you have rights for a movie, the James Bond movie. You're the owner, and you can sell the satellite rights for 5 years to X. You can sell the cinema rights for 3 years to Y. You can sell the online internet rights for 2 years to Z. And you can even divide it up, as in you sell the cinema rights for the next 2 years in the Baltic countries, in the Nordic countries, in Western European countries, in South Asian countries, and Southeast Asian countries. You can do a lot of things. So that's something to be careful about. Assignment. Then comes licensing, and that's very relevant, because instead of selling something, you license it. I think I told you about this Bill Gates story, right? You could sell something, and that's like you have a bird that lays a golden egg every morning, and if you sell it for 10,000 euros, well, that's it. You get upfront the money. Or you could keep this bird, and it gives you eggs every month for forever, for how long it lives. I don't know how long it lives, but that's licensing. And licensing, we have also seen in trademarks already. So you license something, and then of course you give a right which would not otherwise have existed to this other person, the licensee. So you're the licensor, and you give the right license right to somebody who's a licensee, and now this person can use your copyright. And again, it's for a certain amount of time, or forever. So again, you can do these sort of things. Now this reminds me of a situation. There was a charitable organization, and they were collecting laptops, old laptops, working but still old laptops, and they wanted to send them to some poor children in some village in Rwanda or somewhere in Africa. So this charity was in the US, and they collected 1,000 laptops, and they got ready to send them to Africa. And then Microsoft said, hold on a moment, people buy the laptop, but they license, they get a license for the software. If you look at the terms and conditions, you don't own the software, all right? You just have a license to use it. It's like with your phone. You have your iPhone or your Samsung. You own the phone, yes, of course, the metal, plastic, glass part of it, with all, the battery and everything. But you don't own the license on the basis of which, of the software. You don't own the software on the basis of which the phone works. You just have a license to use the software. So again, very important to keep in mind. And then of course, sometimes you can just, not charge any money. You can give it for free. Of course, nothing in life is free. Yeah. So it's like, buy the iPhone 11, 12, whatever, and you get iOS software for free. Yeah, right. So you buy something for 1,000 euros, the hardware, and then you can use the software for free. But you can't use that software on this thing, right? Because it's not compatible. So basically, you're being suckered into thinking that you're getting something for free, which is not the case, because as your parents or guardians must have told you by now many times, nothing in life is free. So well, you see, a lot of this open source software can sometimes have a hidden agenda. And the thing here is, we don't want to charge for the software, but the software is useless without the hardware. So you can sell more of the hardware and make money that way. So again, so a lot of these things work in different ways, and these are commercial strategies. It's like now with the PlayStation 5 coming out, or the Xbox, the new one that's coming out. Historically, these things don't make money. The manufacturers don't even recover the full manufacturing cost of your PlayStation or Xbox. So actually, they sell it at a loss. But they make up for that by selling you the games, right? And again, licenses for these games. So you get these games for 75 euros and 80 euros, and then you play these games, and then you feel somehow happy about it. And then these games have separate levels, different levels, and then you reach the last level, you win the game. Now what do? You can start playing the game again if you want, but then it gets boring. So basically, you are stuck with this console, and then you get these, of course, software updates and everything for free. But if you really want to enjoy it, you need good games, and good games cost money. And of course, now with geotagging and you download the games and all those sort of things, again, it's becoming very difficult for people to swap games or exchange games amongst friends. So you see what the point here. You could get that DVD of the game, and then of course you could have done something with that. But if you download the game, then you have a digital version, and of course it's stuck with your your user ID. So all of these are different tricks that are used. And of course also, you can exercise your copyright by you own something, so you can give it as a will to your children. You can lease it, you can sell it, license it, exchange it. You can maybe go to a bank and get a loan against it, use it as a security, as a surety, all sorts of things. It's property. Property is property. Do what you wish to do with it. It's just that there is material property and immaterial property. There is tangible property and intangible property. There are some things that you see and you feel happy that yes, I have I own a horse. All right, so haha, yeah, it's a memory. I got it from Portugal. It reminds me of good times, and yeah, I can play with it. But you see, that's material, of course. But if you want to buy this horse from me, well, maybe I don't want to sell it for €5, even though I bought it for €5, because it reminds me of a very lovely time that I had, and it has sentiments for me. It may be something that's been gifted to me by somebody special, and so the price is not the same as the manufacturing price, and that's intangible. Yes, and that's got a lot to do with copyright also. Sometimes it appeals to some people, the artistic work, and sometimes not to others. So you really can't say what's the price for it. And of course, that's the only problem with intellectual property rights, and copyright also is no different. And there are some people who are big fans of Harry Potter series, and they will pay a lot for the paraphernalia that comes with it, the fan art or whatever, different toys and things. And then there are some who don't care about this particular book so much or story so much, so they don't really uh, put the same value to it. So these are some of the challenges that are faced when you try to commercialize intellectual property, because there's this Apple fan base, there is the Samsung Android fan base, then there are those who use Chinese software phones. So it's very different for different people. So how long does copyright protection last? This is extremely important. Remember, all intellectual property is a form of monopoly. It doesn't last forever, except for trademarks. Yes, you could renew them after every 10 years. But generally, the idea is that society needs a balance. As a software creator or an artist or inventor, you make something and it costs time, effort, and money, and so of course you want to recover your costs and still feel motivated to work and create new things. So that's your interest, and of course you would like your exclusive monopoly to commercialize your IPR to be forever, which is not the case, because there's also a strong public interest and people want to enjoy your creation, your creativity, and at an affordable price, and they don't want to pay an obscene sum of money forever just to watch you get rich. So there is this constant tension. And so if you look at copyright is 70 years from the date of death of the author. Yeah, very important term of protection in the United Kingdom, but that covers more or less all countries in the world now. For an original literary, dramatic, musical, or artistic work lasts for the life of the author plus 70 years from the end of the year in which they die. Yeah, so 70 years from after their death. So this is a very important thing to be careful about. It used to be 50 earlier, I remember. Then it became 60. Now it's 70. So there's always this constant lobbying by different artists and associations and unions, and they try to get more and more rights for their work. So you see, what would be the point of having 70 years after the last Beatles guy dies? Well, Yellow Submarine. So maybe I can download it as a tune and then hear it out, or you can have a remake made. You can have all of these things that you see on YouTube or Netflix. So you have these substantial rights, 70 years, not a short period of time. But yeah, very important to keep in mind here that this 70 years is from a particular time frame and from the end of the year in which they die. All right. So be very careful about this part. Then copyright in films. Yeah, again, it's here. Outline, broadcast, sound recordings, typographical arrangements. Unpublished works are new elements that are coming out, because remember, what are the requirements of copyright would be? It has to be published. That's the key criteria. And sometimes it's just that your grandmom granddad, I don't know, had a love affair with somebody. Yeah, Field Marshal Mannerheim during the First World War, and they exchanged love poems or something, which were never published, which nobody ever knew about. And now, these are just lying in the attic of your old house, family house, and now one day you go up to clean the house, and then you find these love letters from Field Marshal Mannerheim to your grandmom or somebody, and you're like, wow. Yeah. Now, of course, these have never been published before, so well, nobody can say, oh, Field Marshal Mannerheim is dead, and that's it, kaput. So now you don't have any rights. No, that's not true. You could still come up with a book and say, well, I found love letters written by a very important historical figure, and although technically they should have been out of copyright because of the circumstances, he wrote them during World War One. World War One ended 102 years ago, and of course he also died a long time ago. But the point here is, because it's new, newly discovered, unpublished, so again you have some rights. Yeah. And then moral rights are, again, they have certain limitations. So these are all laid down in the notes. These can differ a little, slightly, more or less, from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, but generally they tend to be the same everywhere. So how do you get copyright protection? Well, there is no copyright registration process which is compulsory. You could register your copyright if you want to, but otherwise, under the Universal Copyright Convention, copyright comes into existence as soon as the work is published. It comes in so straight away, and so of course you put in that C with a symbol. Like I did the cartoon last time of the hipster, with afro hairstyle. So of course you put C in a circle, put the name of the author, year of publication, because I published that video lecture on YouTube, so that's publication, and that's good to go. Of course, that creates a problem if you're a IP lawyer. So let's say I go to Cannes with a client and we are interested in buying a movie. Now, how do I know? The 70-year period is crazy, right? So maybe if I'm buying a James Bond movie, I know it's that particular studio and they make the movie, and I deal with that studio and United Artists, Sony, whoever. So that's not a problem. But very often what happens is you have a producer in Mexico who gives the money for this movie to be made, and then gets all the paperwork done, and then he sells it to somebody in I don't know, Argentina, and then that person sells the rights of that movie to somebody in Australia, and then that person sells Asian rights to somebody in China, and now this Chinese guy is trying to sell me the rights to that movie. So of course you can see what's going on here. The Australian guy had the global rights, the Chinese guy has the Asian rights. So if I buy from the Australian guy, I would get global rights minus Asia, and the Chinese guy, if I buy from him, now I would get Asian rights. So I could buy rights from the Chinese guy for maybe India, and some neighboring countries. So again, this is problematic because what do the Chinese guy says that yes, he has global rights, when in case he does not, which is why you need to do due diligence. So I need to see the paperwork, the paper trail going back to the Mexican producer, and sometimes even that may not be enough, which is why what we often see is that if you're buying movies, then you just put an advertisement in a local newspaper which deals with these sort of things, not just any gossip newspaper, but you have these trade journals, magazines, and things like that, and then so you have advertised it, and you say that, well, my client is interested in buying this James Bond movie or whatever movie, and for this particular market, for this particular duration of term, and if you have any problems, any objections, you have 7 days from the date of publication of this notice. Inform me, I'm the lawyer, and we can take it from there. Now, does this have any value? Not really, nothing. But actually it's quite helpful, because if later I go ahead with the deal on behalf of my client, and the matter goes to court, and this guy comes up and says, I am from I don't know, somewhere, and I have the rights, and how dare you buy these rights from somebody else? You are buying stolen property. Well, in that case, I can say, hey, I tried to do my due diligence, and I looked at the paper trail, and even beyond that, I even gave a public notice. So at least I am not the bad guy. All right, I tried to do everything in good faith, and if somebody messed up, well, I'm really sorry about that, but don't shoot me. Okay, I'm not to be entirely blamed for this sort of thing. I'm not dealing with stolen property or illegal property or anything of that sort. So, copyright enforcement, the last part, what do you do? Well, you have certain rights, and of course, if you're not happy, if somebody is stealing your rights, then you can go to a court of law. And jurisdiction is very important over here. Which court would you file the lawsuit in? So, you need to check the copyright law of that particular country. And then, of course, either where the plaintiff is based or where the defendant is based, usually where the defendant is based. And so you have done this, notices you have sent and everything, and not got any response, or not a favorable response at least. And then you go to a court, an appropriate court, and you say, well, I'm the owner of the copyright of this movie or the story, and this person is stealing my rights and my exclusive economic rights, and so I want action to be taken. And so you have a list of prayers. I want an injunction so that this person cannot deal with this movie. At the same time, I want this person to deliver all the material, print or DVD or whatever he or she has in his possession, so that I can destroy it. Then I want this person to apologize to me. I want this person to give me, I've suffered of damages, so I want this person to pay a fine. How many? I don't know, 100,000, 100 million, whatever. But be careful, this fancy number that you have in your mind, you have to pay court fees based on that number. So you shouldn't file a lawsuit against somebody for 1 billion euros, because you'll have to pay court fees also. Yeah. And in the meantime, of course, you want the right to have a temporary injunction, temporary custody, and things like that. So then it goes to court, and the court decides, and then based on that you get your decision. And if you're not happy, you can go to a higher court and appeal, and first appeal is guaranteed, no problems. Second appeal is on point of law. So this is a hierarchy that law students will be aware of. So what are exceptions to copyright? Non-commercial research and private study, like what we are doing here, studying, so it's okay. Criticism, review, and reporting current events. So if I'm reporting about something that's of relevance, then in that case, this could come under a news report or a documentary or something of that sort. But you have to be very careful about these things. Then teaching in educational establishments, again, covers us. Then exceptions for the disabled, which would be sometimes if you cannot read, then you have certain possibilities to get audio files made. Then time shifting is very important. This is another important area which would cover, for example, let's say the James Bond movie is for Friday night, but if you have a smart TV, and if you also have this arrangement with your internet service provider or TV service provider, then you can watch the previous 2 weeks content. So again, all of this is called time shifting, and it's very relevant. And so that's more or less all that's there to it. So we have covered all sorts of rights over here. There are some public lending rights and artist resale rights mentioned later on, so you can read about them as well. So copyright done. Again, light stuff, nothing heavy duty. Remember, it's a 3-credit course. And if you have any questions, of course, feel free to ask me. So copyright is over, and now next we'll start with patent law next week. All right. So thank you for your time, and have a nice day. Goodbye.